Thank you. So thanks for having me, first of all. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Axel Ram. I'm currently engineering director, senior principal engineer at Whirlpool, one of the leaders in the market for home appliances, major home appliances in the market. And I've been talk a little bit about my background, my experience, over 20 years experience in digital transformation, product development, engineering-driven solutions, and more recently, I would say more recently over this past 7 years, more focused also on the data science, machine learning, AI workflows, and more recently in generative AI. So what I'm going to do today is to share a little bit about some use cases we have at Whirlpool, where we are using real data from customers' feedback, data that's available, in order to take actions and improve our products. Okay, so with that, a quick highlight about the agenda. I'm going to share next here. We are going to cover some topics regarding prompt engineering. Talk a little bit about agentic workflows, very trendy topic these days, right? And how we are going to connect those dots with engineering workflows like prompt with scientific method, right? Agentic workflows with systems engineering. We are going to leverage a little bit of what we have in the realm of operational excellence or design for Six Sigma in order to tie this into LLM ops. More to come on that, right? It's more engineering touch on all of this. And also what applications we have for generative AI in production. And a quick demo about one ongoing application we have that's very popular in the company these days. And also what else we have envisioned for future, okay? So we start with that. Let me start with prompt engineering. I think it's a very important topic, and the way that from engineering perspective, the way I see that is pretty aligned with scientific method, right? Whenever we look at the quote, questions lead, answers follow, right? That's very important. If you do this in a structured way, using some techniques in the realm of design for Six Sigma or Lean Six Sigma, I think it helps you to structure the framework and put better prompts. And therefore, you can interact in a better way, in a more robust way with large language models. Okay, it's pretty much a structured way. It's not only ask a question to a ChatGPT like, is to structure the way that you are going to interact with those models, and therefore you can have robust answers, right? As an example here, you can define some kind of core content for your prompt, right? You put a task. And you have an output format, right? This can be for every prompt you do for a similar application. But sometimes, in terms of context that's being brought from a database, these are variable part of the prompt. And the question that the users are asking, these are variable parts of the prompt, right? So that's pretty much, we can control the task in the output format, but we cannot control what's coming to the prompt. And that's all about robustness that we're going to talk next, right? Very important topic here, prompt engineering. How to structure the work or the questions that we normally interact with the large language models. And the next one is in my core about systems engineering. I cannot live without that. Is the way that we can put together a framework to start using the V diagram. That's a very popular tool in systems engineering, right? And if you think about agentic workflows, right, it's all about system engineering in my perspective, right? We have a lot of tools, right? You can think about this as nail robots as tools, right? That they have specific functions, but as primarily when they interact to one another in the system, they get into the realm of emergence, right? They result into something larger than the individual operations, right? Or skill sets for the monolithic robots, as you can see here, right? So very important here, bottoms-up approach, right? We develop tools. I'm going to show an example next, right? And then we verify those tools, and then we go for an aggregate of tools, right? And then we go for a reasoning element here, or an oracle that is going to integrate those tools, and we do the verification. And therefore, at the end, we validate the system, right, to see if it's really working as expected, right? That's all about agentic workflows here. Do the thing right and do the right things. Very important on the core of this workflow we have for agents these days. Moving ahead here, next one, I would like to show how a little bit how I normally tackle those problems whenever I want to develop an application here, for instance, right? First thing that we need to look at, objective. We must have a clear objective in mind, right? If it's a RAG workflow, okay, what's the data? What we want to get from it, right? Is step number one, clear objective. What are the imperatives to the business, right? If you cannot measure, you cannot control, you cannot improve, right? Second step, very important. We really need to put a scale, right? If you really want to assess the way that the results from kind of a generative AI application is given to you, you got to put some rules to understand how to assess it, right? You can see that this is very in the core of large language model operations, right? Or LLM ops, that's a CI/CD within LLMs these days, right? But we got to put some rules right here. And it can be like an engineering use case for optimization, right? You can do some, you can tap into not only on the performance of the model itself, but also on cost or complexity, right? If you have a given payload, what's going to be the cost if you pick very sophisticated large language models and so on, you know? So step number one, objective. Number two, how to measure. Step number three is whatever we are using as a ground truth or input signal here, right? Human in the loop, very important, right? What's the ground truth that's coming from human beings interacting with those large language models? And we have a kind of a continuous improvement loop into shots for the prompts that's going to assess the results here, okay? And also noise strategy. What's noise? Things that we can control are control factors, and noise factors, things we cannot control, okay? I know that for a control factors perspective, we can always step into large language models, we can look at model parameters, we can kind of design the core prompt and others, right? But we need to be robust against noise factors, the variable part of the prompt, the query, and the context, right? Or the data. Data can be from multiple sources, social media, customer reviews, star ratings, service complaints, and others, okay? Very important. Always look at things you can control and things you cannot control, and then you design your system on the way that you can be robust against things you cannot control, okay? That's your army and this is the enemy, right? You have to, for delivering robustness, you need to look at both, because if you ignore exactly the noise factors, your system will not be robust. It's going to crash, it's going to break. And keep that in mind that we always should be having very clear ways to measure the performance, right? And then moving forward, what we have in production these days using this approach at Whirlpool, we have multiple applications in place, and you can put X or times the number of categories we have for our portfolio of products, right? We have refrigeration, cooking, laundry, dishwashing, and so on, right? Small appliances. We have customer reviews, we have service quality, we have no charge parts, social media reviews, engineering copilots, very popular these days to understand how can we ask questions to engineering data, right? And service manuals, okay? And others that we have in production right now for like patents or IPs, what other copilots that are being designed. And more recently, we've been exploring a lot of agentic customer feedback workflows as well. Moving forward here, I'm going to show a quick demo here about the star ratings or customer reviews that we have using generative applications. Very important to have to show the why, to earn the right to explain the how, right? Very important here. We always have to really delve into this, the why, to show to the business what's the benefit of those applications. And I normally recommend to look at quality, cost, and time to market, right? For generative AI workflows is not a clear cut. Sometimes we have to trust our guts, but I think the more that we analyze a use case, I think that's going to be better. I normally tend to say that if you, to use naming quotes here, right? If you don't know how to map your work in a process, right? You don't know what you're doing. So let's map the process, right? Let's understand the pain points or bottlenecks in the existing process, right? If you work in a call center, if you work in engineering to design a new part, right? Or if you work as a service technician that you need to troubleshoot a product in the field, right? Map your process, how you do your work, and try to understand where the pain points or bottlenecks they reside, okay? For every bottleneck, for all the bottlenecks, you can build a heat map, right? To understand complexity versus benefit, right? Is normally what we normally do in AI councils, right, to prioritize projects. But this is the data that's coming from your process mapping, right, or your value stream mapping at all, right? And then you look, okay, this is my key pain point that I need to address, right? And how can I address that? You do the 5 whys, ask questions, and maybe the how is going to result into a Gen AI workflow, right? Because generative AI can save a lot of time in a lot of workflows, but it's not always the solution for everything. Sometimes we have to go for more deterministic tools, right? Using machine learning, right? Or optimization workflows, right? For more deterministic to really deal with numbers, right? Or sometimes you need to understand the customer, what they have in their minds, and Gen AI makes a lot of sense to be really leveraged, right? So, and then we can really come up with evidence-based decision on how to prioritize generative AI in the enterprise, right? Do that exercise, right? And the what here is inherently a lot of data analytics. You're going to see that I'm going to show a lot of things about exploratory data analysis through the data, right? Because first, look at the data, filter the data. Before doing that, do some feature engineering on the data to augment the data capabilities, right? And then you can start digging into AI summarizations or RAG workflows, right? The tools that we use, a lot of tools for this specific application, it's a web scraped data from a trustful source, right? And there's a lot of data augmentation or feature engineering on top of that that we do with our internal or proprietary categorization for attributes and others, or sentiment analysis. A lot of things that we have in terms of scripting for visualizations in AI integrations. And this is the main tools we use in AWS are from the cloud infrastructure. We use S3, Bedrock, and Lambda here, and others, right? But those are the key ones. Moving forward here, this is a very simple diagram on the way that we currently do, and I'll show at the end of the presentation the way that we are envisioning to have some tech push in the future to improve the workflows, right? But a lot of training on premise, right? We store some data like a microservices into the S3 bucket, right, in the cloud, right? There's an API gateway that we also not only use to train the data on premise, but we also use this API gateway to call those tools or functions, right, from this Lambda fleet into the an application using Elastic Beanstalk residing under a VPC in the cloud, right, with all those security safeguards from a VPN and direct connects. Okay, very simplistic, right? That's the way we do. This is a perspective for a retrieval augmented generation workflow. As a quick example here for the application, the way it works. First, there are a lot of tabs. A lot of things I'm going to show you here are about exploratory data analysis. But first, we need to validate the data. Okay, that's one of the first visuals I have in those applications, right? All the labels are given as a feedback to the users of these applications. You can look at the months or all the schema, all the data, right? The sources from where the data is coming from, brands, corporations, commercial segments, products and families, model numbers, right? This is very important. If you leave this wide open and ask a question, your question is going to be so difficult to be understood by a generative AI model because it's pretty much trying to find the needle in the haystack, right? This is why we need to really understand to focus exactly on the part of the data that you're going to ask the question. That's so important, right? There are a lot of tools in RAG or retrieval augmented generation, but this is to me one of the most important ones. Tune your data, right? Using some filters and do a lot of exploratory data analysis until you feel 100% good on the data that we have, and then you ask a question, okay? There are some tools we have to look at the data once you filtered and validate the data, right? As simple as like a bar plot to understand the distribution of data for stars rating or for attributes or for sources or for model numbers, right? You can do a quick check-in, okay? And you can see exactly whether it's behaving as expected. A next one would be now we can, this is one of my favorite ones. It's called Sankey plot or alluvial plot. They also call like that, you know, that mimics the water flowing on the river, right? And you can do a lot of visualizations on the way that the data, the different columns of your data frame interact to one another here, right? To understand the way that the data is flowing through these diagrams here and see if it's making sense. Sometimes you can catch some miscategorizations or misclassifications here. Very important tool. And also gives you a feedback for exactly the count or the distribution of more reviews in this case that we have for specific attributes or labels, right? As you can see, corporations, I'm comparing different companies or brands, right, with different product segments, and look at star ratings and look at attributes now, right? And you can do a lot of visualizations, insightful visualizations, given the outcomes from the Sankey plot here. Next one is about a bar plot with interactions or hue, right? You can see interactions, because before the other plot was much more about the count of reviews, right? But maybe you have more count because you have more volume of sales, right? And this is more a perspective about percentage here, okay? It gives a highlight about percentages within those bars. It's also very insightful to understand the benefits that we have, or some kind of okay, where I have less 5 stars in a given brand or segment, and so on. Next, visualization time series, because we really want to understand the trends over time, right? Very important to understand whether we improved or got worse in a specific brand over time based on customer feedback here, right? Another popular one, that we understand the value to the business. If I have a gap, I know that from a customer perspective, the highest score is a 5 star, that's 5, right? But on average, if we are at 3, and based on the number of reviews that you can see with this line here, right, you can really, okay, this is where I have the most of the benefit, because the count is larger for reviews on this. But here is where I have the biggest gap here, right? And so you can prioritize and take some actions, right? To understand how can you fine tune your data filtering and get back to this analysis here with more refined data sets. Okay, so, and then now we are going to start talking about AI, okay, generative AI. Everything it was about data visualization, data wrangling, right? To understand the insights from the data, very important, right? So you can use these data sets here, or these visualizations, to identify opportunities. Okay, I know that there's a gap here in this specific attribute here. So you go back to the data filter, refine the filter, look at the trends again, adjust the filter again, but because now I got another subset that I want to focus more, adjust the filter again, and then you can do some summarization, right? 1, 2 stars. Okay, what are the leading drivers of 1, 2 stars? This text summarization. Powered by AI, right? We use Claude, Sonnet 3.5 here as a large language model to do summarization. And the AI engine is going to give the summary of a lot of words, thousands and thousands of words in a few seconds. And that provides a lot of feedback to the customers, right? They can see that they are mostly talking about the ice maker, stop working, some intermittent behavior, right? And others. Is a powerful feedback in terms of word clouds for bigrams to the customers, right? And also some insights coming from the AI regarding the feedback, customer complaints, and improvement opportunities. But it's not only about looking at bad things, right? But also look at the good things, right? If we do a gap analysis, is not only what we have at work, all right, in terms of opportunities for improvement, but also what our competitors have, in order that they have better scores or better ratings or reviews than us, right? And then we do this gap analysis, right? Now I'm going to do the same filtering techniques, right? Looking at where I can see a potential leverage, right? And then the same thing, not looking at the 1, 2 stars, but looking at the 4, 5s now, right? And see what we have here in terms of 4, 5-star results. And then you can see, okay, there are some key or interesting benefits for water dispensing, ice makers. This is a summary, right? What can be done to leverage. And another thing that I have to mention here is about here. There's a direct feedback. Human in the loop matters a lot. Remember, data filtering, feature engineering, data augmentation. Go back and reloop the filters, right? Otherwise, it's going to be very hard to find those patterns. Once you feel good with that, you push this button, the AI is going to do the data crunching and the summarizations to you. And then human in the loop again. You push this button here, you're going to download all the data, you're going to see exactly the actual reviews associated with this summary here, and do some triage, do some check-ins, to really build more trust. You need to understand what, in terms of summarization, the AI is giving that to you, but those are the actual reviews, right? And do your check yourself to understand if that makes sense, right? And that's going to allow you to build more trust in these tools, right? Human in the loop matters a lot here. And last but not least is about the RAG itself, Retrieval Augmented Generation. It's a very powerful tool where we have data being, you can ask any questions for this model, right? In this case here, you can, there's a question that was asked here about one specific highlight some pain points or the key benefits for dispensing functionality. As you saw in the previous slide, there is something that the customers are telling about dispensing, water dispensing for a product that it's being very well rated. And you ask this question to this RAG engine, right, for that specific data filtering chunk. And then the AI is going to reply to you, okay, based on those reviews. It's pretty much doing the vector search based on this query versus all the 250 retrievals from the vector shop, right, using a RAG workflow. And it's going to give you the feedback, the answer step by step. Okay, the customers are telling good things about water dispensing because of this, easy to use, the water quality, the design is a good design, the water pressure is coming nicely, and so on and so forth. Okay, you have very good insights. If you try to do this manually, it's going to take a lot of time, right? It's a lot of work. There is nothing wrong about doing this manually. You can actually also read the results here, right? There's a feedback from the RAG. What are the 250 retrievals that were used here to get the data, right? And you can actually read them, right? All the data that we have with the metadata behind those reviews, right? And you can see exactly the review number, the document number, and everything that was associated with that customer review. This is Euclidean distance. This is the least distance from the query, right? And you can see in order of importance exactly those reviews that were summarized by the AI to give you this answer. In terms of next steps, we are building now what we call the Lambda orchestrator for the agentic workflow, because imagine like this, there are a lot of agent examples we have in place, right? But the most examples I see in some YouTube videos and some outside materials available on the web are about, okay, write me an email, give me the weather forecast. But here I really want to improve the customer experience. But I know that I have data coming from internal quality workflows, right? We have our internal data from service tickets, right? We have social media, we have star ratings and others, right? What if we put together an oracle or a reasoning agent, which is going to look at all these data sets and going to tell me, right? What can you do to improve the customer experience based on X, Y, and Z, right? That's the key point about having this orchestrator here and interacting with all those tools. Bottoms up approach, build your army of tools, right? And then connect this upstream with an orchestrator. That's a very agentic workflow to add value to the business. That's the way we are building right now, and there will be some results coming along soon for this. The way that we envision to have a tech push for a near future is use Bedrock agents. Great tool, right? You can see that you can simply plug in Bedrock agents into the workflow here, and therefore you can use exactly the integrator here through an API call to the agents, right? And the agent's gonna create a lot of automation in this entire process, right? But I normally tell my AWS partners, as an engineer, I really want to learn on the harder way, right? And then I can see the benefit after I implement this, and then I go from there, right? And then I can learn along with this whole process, right? And the final remarks here, always keep the clear business objective in mind, right? For improving quality, reducing costs, expediting time to market, right? Very important. And remember about the process mapping. There will be some hard savings. If you reduce prototype expenses, a hard saving, or if you alleviate the burden of hiring technicians to do overtime, right? It's a hard saving. But if you really want to use GenAI to really leverage some kind of time to market or efficiency opportunities, is always a good idea to map the process, understand the bottlenecks, and do a quick improvement pilot with internal self-sufficiencies to create those tools, right, with direct feedback from the internal stakeholders. And therefore, you create that improvement pilot as an experience, right, and you refine that, and you have data as your future stretch mapping, and then you can compare your cycle time, how much time you're going to reduce by using that, right, the new process. Always scientific method, right? One of my core skill sets about design for Six Sigma or operational excellence, questions lead, answers follow, is very, very associated with prompt engineering, right? Problem-solving techniques like the ones I mentioned before in the realm of LLM ops development. Remember the 4 steps, right? Clear objective, functional measurements, signal to noise strategy, and control factor strategy, right? Very important to put together the way that we can develop a robust large language model tool solution on the component side, right? And then it can grow in the V diagram for systems engineering. Reliable data, well-designed filters and domain knowledge, very important here, right? Human in the loop, right? To build trust, because a lot of skepticism, your AI can hallucinate. You can control that. You can control the AI temperature or some other variables, right, to reduce that. But it's still there still be some variability, right? The way that you can really build more trust is about having the human in the loop and provide feedback to your stakeholders about the data that's behind those summaries or the data, the analysis that's coming to the front end here. And last but not least, agentic workflow, very well associated with systems engineering V model in order to understand the task decompositions, to validate and verify, validate up to the system level. And of course, always, there's no such immaculate system, right? We can always be open. We can always be open for continuous improvement here, right? With direct feedback from the ground truth to the workflows here. With that, I think we're on time, right, Lauren? Maybe 1 minute.
Right on time.
Yeah.
Outstanding. Thank you so much, Axel, for the insightful presentation here. I will, for any questions from the audience, feel free to raise your hand by using the raise hand feature at the bottom of the WebEx, or you can drop your questions in the chat if you are more comfortable that way. Looks like we have a hand. Is that Marie?
Hi, Axel. My name is Marie Fallon. I work with AWS. I'm an account manager. Very interesting presentations from both yourself and John. One question that I have for you is, obviously, Axel, Whirlpool is a large organization. I presume that you have a lot of engineers and developers internally. So that's going to be an advantage or a benefit to you in terms of trying out Gen AI and doing your POCs and seeing where it's going to work best for you and give the best return on investment. For smaller companies who maybe don't have those internal resources, how would you suggest that they should approach Gen AI, and how it's such a large area? What would you say they should focus on, or how can they even present that to their management in terms of showing how it's going to be a real benefit and give some return on investment for them?
That's a very good question. Thanks, Marie. In my opinion, I see if you have a certain degree of self-sufficiency, you can put together an application really quick in production, for a pilot, right? AWS is a great partner for that, right? You can have people within AWS who help to expedite and develop those tools, right? Because I had no knowledge before back 2 years ago about how to create a front end in the cloud, how to create those API calls, what are the tools available, what are the right instances to be used here, right? But put together an application in production, get direct feedback. The UI UX work lives internally for those internally facing applications, right? And do some continuous improvement and prove to the business the real value of that, right? Map the current process, and based on the improvement pilot outcomes, do the future stretch in terms of process mapping to understand how much cycle time you're going to save, and put a business case in place and present to the leadership, right? That would be my recommendations, where I see most of the success coming from that, right? And if you gotta fail fast and improve it, right?
Okay. So would you say to focus initially on sort of internal customers, or would, I know this is obviously a customer experience that you're talking about, so it's your external customer, but would you propose maybe looking at something internal initially to try that, to pilot it, and then work outside, or?
Yeah, I would say internally first and try to develop those tools, right? And then you can start small, scale fast, right?
Yeah.
I think that's key.
Thank you.
Welcome.
I perhaps just add to that question, just from my kind of experience. First of all, within a business, a great place to try AI first is actually in IT, because IT can obviously control that AI functionality that's kind of active before allowing or putting it into the business. So if, as a recommendation, I'd say IT are probably a good place to start that. And then I would also add that, we don't have any, a mass team of developers in Kingspan. We very much, work with third parties around developers. And, AWS certainly do have a number of great partners around AI. So, for example, we are working with a partner in Manchester in the UK called Slalom, who are bringing to the table kind of that AI knowledge for us at the moment.
Yeah, the partner ecosystem is very important as well. Yeah. Thank you, John.
And John, your point, IT is a key partner here for sure, right? In IT, they drive the strategy, right? But the execution is still decentralized into the departments, right? But we have to follow the same strategy. We have to be part of the same AI council, right? Otherwise, we cannot control or govern exactly what's going on. In big opportunities from the data strategy, data governance matters a lot, right? That should be under IT, right? You have these contracts, data lake, all this. The data governance in place, right? That's extremely important, this.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's important. IT are definitely at the table. But as I say, if you want to dip your toe into AI, one place to test it is in your own IT department, which is where we learned first in IT.
Can be the guinea pigs.
Yeah, exactly. We decided to be our own guinea pigs first before going to the business, because the business have 1,001 questions that they just throw at you. So if you can answer those questions confidently, then it reassures the business as well.
And John, I did actually have a question for you as well. So, traditionally, I think you would find that OT and IT maybe didn't work that closely together. So do you feel that, with the change in terms of industrial data fabric and IoT and manufacturing, do you feel that is changing across the board? Or do you feel that it's like, was it easy to sell that internally in Kingspan?
I would say what we had to do with the IoT kind of revolution that we started in this kind of new digitalization was we definitely had to prove the concept within one site first. So we actually did a site in Pennsylvania in America first, got that up and running, got the dials and dashes all working. And then we were able to show the business, kind of senior directors and that exactly what is achievable with our own lines. Yeah. And I think that's only because over the years, the business has been burnt by certain vendors over the years of, promising to do things and not actually delivering. And I'm sure, a number of us on the call have probably got many stories of those kind of things. So I think it was important that we could confidently demonstrate to the business and the senior management that it was actually possible to do, with actually showing it working on one of our sites. And then what that tends to do then, it just adds the confidence then for the business then just to invest in the other sites really and grow that opportunity because the confidence is starting to build there.
Yeah. I think you did allude to that, kind of taking small chunks or a small bite and doing it in small pieces.
No, I think it's important. You got to start to walk before you run or try and do it small steps.
Awesome.
But that's basically our experience anyway. I hope that helps.
Thank you.
Thank you, John, and thank you so much, Axel, for taking the time to present today. Much appreciated.